Biostimulants are an extremely important cornerstone of the Cheap to Keep Trees and Landscapes protocol. It is probably the most not talked about ecosystem service that you are going to be exposed to, because we're talking about all of the living things below ground that you cannot see. And we're going to bring light to the fact that there is a whole living system beneath your feet that is absolutely essential to saving you money and eliminating risk when it comes to the management of your trees and landscapes. And nutrient cycling is very simply the formation of nutrients within the soil. In other words, we will provide elements in the form of our biostimulants, and I'll go into those major players in just 1 minute, but when you put those in the soil, they need to be transformed, chelated, exchanged, transferred, moved, or acquired. You're going to hear all of these terms that we have included in our description of nutrient cycling, because one set of players generates a benefit for another set of players in this underground system, underground transport system that is absolutely essential to the growth, maintenance, and reproductive functions of all of your trees, landscape, and turf in a designed ecosystem of balance. And once you achieve this, most of the time, all you have to do is just add water. And we're talking about the big four elements again: water, air, nutrients, and energy. And the nutrients comes in these biostimulants, and I'm going to show you how those major players break out right now. We're talking about biostimulants, and whenever I bring up this subject and use that terminology to refer to the type of feeding that we do, I'm reminded of a customer that I had named Max, and he says, "Why don't you just call it fertilizer?" And I'm going to draw some sharp differences between biofertility or biostimulants and chemical fertilizers. Now, biostimulants are soil and plant growth enhancing products that do 6 distinct things, and I'm going to name them for you. Root and shoot development. They improve these dramatically. They improve soil texture, structure, and in some cases, density. They improve the availability and facilitate the availability of nutrients. They improve insect and disease resistance. Biostimulants named in this section will improve the efficiency of existing fertilization programs, and it buffers the pH, all of which we'll explain to you as we go on. But biostimulation is possible because of an ecosystem service that we refer to as nutrient cycling. When we're talking about biostimulants, there are some major groups that you're going to use, some products. Now, I should mention here that we are not endorsing any particular product. We haven't been paid by any advertisers or paid by any suppliers to promote any product. And so if I happen to mention a particular product's name, please forgive me. We're trying to go generic here, and what we're going to describe to you is some generic breakdowns of materials that you can acquire in your region for the best price possible. Our average cost of a 200-gallon tank prepared with all of our biostimulants for a growth and maintenance application is around $175. And I'll break down some of these costs as we go through the biostimulants, but they'll break down into the major groups of humates. And humates provide humic, omic, and fulvic acid, and these are substances that are dug out of the ground from ancient deposits that have been deposited over millions of years, and they are available at various distribution points throughout our country. We have our local distributor that we acquire ours from, but the humates provide generally speaking, a set of food groups and microbes that I'm going to name for you in just a minute. The other major category is kelp, and kelp extracts, which provide growth hormones, sugars, enzymes, and amino acids. We also add root stimulants and foliar stimulants, depending on whether we're spraying anything on the leaves of our subject trees, plants and turf, and these root stimulants and foliar stimulants are chemical derivatives. And when you start to say that you're completely organic, be very careful in defining that, because the vast majority of our additives are organic in nature, non-toxic, non-chemical, and we're going to draw some differences between what you get from biostimulation and what you get from chemicals. The main benefit is sustainability. It's going to get better and better every year. And through the addition of humates and kelp, you are generally going to be adding 16 mineral elements. These are elements that are acquired from mineral bases, and then there are 3 additional elements of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen that are acquired from the air and water, and they are the most plentiful substances that you're going to find in the plant tissues. And we've talked time and again of how important it is to carefully prepare where these substances go so that they stay on target. And I'm going to assume that once you get to this stage of biostimulation, that you have a carefully prepared area, the critical root zone. You've located where the fibrous roots are, or where they very likely are going to be in the near future with this type of stimulation, and you know exactly where to put them so that they'll stay on target and provide the benefits that you desire, which we just named. Now, we use biostimulation as opposed to chemical fertilization because it is sustainable and it gets a little better and a little cheaper each year because it accumulates. And the reason it does is because this nutrient cycling process takes place in the soil, and what is being cycled is the mineral elements broken down between the microbes in the soil. And the microbes that I'm speaking of are microarthropods, nematodes, protozoa, fungi, algae, and bacteria. Just a single teaspoon of fertile forest soil or fertile soil can contain 25,000 algae, 120,000 fungi, a billion bacteria, hundreds of meters, if not miles, of hyphae, the little threads that the fungi use to join up with the roots and complete the transfer of nutrients in the soil. And it's using biostimulants that we can harness the superpowers of nature most easily. You've heard me refer to them in some of the earlier segments, and here we have the superpowers of what we call the superorganization, where you have all of these billions and millions of microorganisms acting as though they had one mind. They all act in concert together, and they multiply in a dramatic, very efficient way, where the waste product from one feeds the reproduction of another. And this unique exchange, this cycling that we're referring to between these organisms, is absolutely essential to our Cheap to Keep trees and landscape protocol. It develops into a feedback loop where the more they multiply, the faster they grow, and that is how we're able to get the good, rich soil components that cycle these nutrients back and forth, form them within the ground, and are the basis for the Cheap to Keep Trees and Landscapes protocol, getting the savings in cash for maintenance and least risk and least cost, because it's always going on. If you maintain these organisms, these microbes, in a designed ecosystem of balance, they will serve you around the clock, 24/7, 365, and that is the definition of cheap to keep.